The Middle East is once again lurching toward the edge, and this time the stakes could not be higher. Israel has pushed deeper into Lebanon than at any point in 25 years, seizing a Crusades-era fortress, striking Beirut's southern suburbs, while Hezbollah fires rockets into Haifa. President Trump says it's just a glitch, announces a ceasefire, tells everyone to relax, and then the strikes keep coming. Iran has now suspended peace talks entirely, and the UN Security Council is doing what it always does, holding meetings and achieving nothing. Joining me now are Layla Nazari, our Middle East analyst, and Marcus Webb, our defense and security analyst. Layla, let me start with you. Is Trump's Iran deal fantasy collapsing in real time right in front of us?
Thanks, Emma. Look, I wouldn't say collapsing, but it is absolutely being stress tested in the most brutal way possible. Here's what's really going on. Trump wants a nuclear deal with Iran that he can put on the wall next to the Abraham Accords. He genuinely believes he can negotiate his way out of a conflict that has been building for decades. And I respect the instinct to try, but Netanyahu is not going to stand down his military while Hezbollah, an organization with over 150,000 rockets pointed at Israeli civilians, remains intact on Israel's northern border. Netanyahu has seen what happens when you stop short. 2006 happened. Hezbollah rebuilt and doubled its arsenal under the world's nose, while European diplomats applauded. Douglas Murray has been saying for years that the international community applies a standard to Israel it applies to no other democratic nation. And the current media coverage, treating Israeli self-defense as the obstacle to peace, proves him exactly right. The uncomfortable truth is that if you want a durable arrangement in Lebanon, Hezbollah has to be dismantled, not paused.
But Layla, with over 3,400 people dead in Lebanon since March, and Iran now walking away from the negotiating table, isn't there a point where Israel's military campaign is actually making the strategic situation worse, not better, handing Tehran the excuse it needs to blow up any deal? And Marcus, what's your take on this?
Well, look, Layla is making a compelling moral case, but I think she's missing a crucial strategic dimension here. Trump's intervention actually moved the needle. He personally called Netanyahu, he communicated indirectly with Hezbollah, and he got both sides to dial back, even if it held for about 12 hours before the missiles started flying again. That tells you something about American leverage when it's actually applied with conviction rather than handed off to State Department career bureaucrats. Here's the data that matters to me. Iran's enrichment levels have been reported at up to 60%, dangerously close to weapons grade. Every week that the diplomatic track collapses is another week Iran potentially moves closer to a threshold that makes military options far more costly and dangerous. I'm not saying Israel should accept a bad deal. I'm saying the sequencing matters enormously, and right now, the sequencing is on fire.
I hear what Marcus is saying, but with respect, that misses the point entirely. You cannot negotiate durable security arrangements with Iran while Iran's proxy army is actively firing rockets into Israeli cities. That's not sequencing. That's capitulation dressed up as strategy. Iran suspended the talks. Iran, the regime that funds Hezbollah, the regime that has consistently used diplomatic processes as cover to advance its nuclear program, is now claiming moral injury because Israel is hitting back. Come on. Short, punchy truth. Iran doesn't want a deal that disarms Hezbollah. Iran wants a deal that freezes Israel in place while Hezbollah reloads. Netanyahu understands that. Trump, to his credit, seems to understand that too on some level, which is why he called it a glitch rather than a crisis. The question is whether his team around him has the spine to back Israel's military objectives rather than trading them away for a photo opportunity.
Here's what I want to know, because this is the question that keeps every defense analyst up at night. Iran has now threatened to open new fronts. The UN is useless. We've established that. We've got Israeli forces at their deepest penetration into Lebanon in 40 years. Marcus, where do you see this going in the next 30 to 60 days, and is there a version of this that doesn't end badly?
The way I see this playing out, there are really only two viable exits. Either Trump closes a framework agreement with Iran in the next 2 to 3 weeks, which he has said is possible, and which I think is genuinely achievable if both sides calculate the economic pain of continued conflict, or this escalates into a regional flashpoint that draws in U.S. forces in the Persian Gulf, whether Washington wants it or not. Iran's threat to open new fronts is not a bluff. They have proxies in Yemen, in Iraq, in Syria. The risk here is a multi-front scenario that makes the current Lebanon situation look like a warm-up act. Trump's sit-back-and-relax line is politically clever. It projects calm. But behind closed doors, I'd be very surprised if the White House isn't running through some very uncomfortable contingency planning right now.
Here's what concerns me most, and this is the scenario I don't think is getting enough attention. What if there is a deal, but it's a bad one? What if Trump, desperate for a legacy win, pressures Israel into accepting a ceasefire that leaves Hezbollah structurally intact, garners some vague Iranian commitments on nuclear enrichment that are impossible to verify, and gets announced with a Rose Garden ceremony? That would be catastrophic. Not immediately. Immediately it would look like a triumph. But 18 months from now, Hezbollah rearms, Iran continues enrichment, and we're back here having this exact conversation except with worse starting conditions. History tells us, and I mean 2006, I mean 2015 with the JCPOA, that Iran is extraordinarily patient and extraordinarily disciplined at exploiting the gap between what agreements say and what they actually achieve on the ground. The trajectory here concerns me deeply.
Layla, Marcus, remarkable and genuinely chilling analysis from both of you tonight. One thing is absolutely certain. Somewhere in Tehran, they are very carefully reading every word Donald Trump says and calculating exactly how much runway they have left.